Welcome to No Assigned Seats with Thomas Stirling.
Hey everybody, today I'm sitting down with Linda Watts, who's Director of Brand and Marketing at the National Senior Games Association. Today's conversation is a perspective on aging and where brands can meet it or miss out on it. Linda, thanks for coming to the show.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, I think first question I'd like to ask everybody, talk to us about the journey to the seat that you're in today.
Sure. Well, I've primarily worked in healthcare and senior living, and both of those industries are very much focused on older adults. So healthcare, obviously everyone needs healthcare, but the people who use it most and the people who have the most highest intensity procedures done tend to be older adults, right? And senior living, we think about it as being entirely seniors, but it's interesting that a lot of times it's the adult children who are pushing their parents to go into senior living. It's not something that the older adult chooses themselves. And I find that very interesting. So in both healthcare and senior living, both of those industries, a lot of people resist going into the product. They resist getting healthcare because it means they're getting older. Yeah. And they resist going into senior living because they have an image of their head of what it means to be in a senior living community. And so as a sponsor, I ended up at the National Senior Games, and it was a whole different world because these were older adults, age 50 to over 100, who were out there just they were amazing. I mean, they're like pole vaulting, they're like diving off the block swimming, like they're doing all this stuff. And the way they think about aging is completely different than how all the other industries are looking at it. And it just made me think very differently about how we as a society think about aging and what the opportunity is there.
Well, I think a lot of brands talk about aging, and there's billions and billions and billions of dollars spent on talking about anti-aging and the fear of aging and us all being afraid of what that future is. And so I guess, like, what's your perspective on why brands, I guess, focus really on the loss, the limitations, the fear, and what that means from a missed opportunity perspective?
Yeah. Well, the platform's already there. So it's a lot easier to take a platform that exists and just keep building on it. So the opportunity in senior living is to build on the fear, to say to the older adult, the daughter of the older adult, that, you know, you're worried about your parent, they're getting old, they're starting to slip, you need to be worried about them. And you can build on that fear and it feels very normal. If you were to create a different platform of saying that being an older adult is just this beautiful phase of life where you get to experience things differently, and we're going to create a community that's built around your needs and what you need, and it's a great opportunity for you. Like, you hear that and you're like, oh, that doesn't sound right. But it is. Like, that's the reality. And so it's a lot harder to create that perception. It's a lot easier to build into the fear. And so we sit there. We stay there because that's where people's brains already are.
And yet, a missed opportunity. If we think about an audience that is, we talk a lot about wealth transfers, and we always get, as marketers, sometimes excited about the generation coming up. As brands, sometimes we get excited about a new audience, an adjacent audience, maybe not always our core audience. In this case, it's a demographic that's sitting on a lot of assets, a lot of resources.
Let's talk about that. So individuals age 65 plus are only 18% of the population, but they hold 70% of the disposable income in the United States. That's a big number.
Yeah.
That's a really big number. So as a marketer, why would you ignore that demographic? I mean, that's a really big question, because I understand the younger generations, you may have them for life, but in the moment, they don't have anywhere near the amount of disposable income that our older adults do.
Yeah, well, I was talking to a marketer the other day, and I think there's this prevailing wisdom, I'll use air quotes, wisdom, thinking it's like, well, if I target the younger demographic and I speak to them, I'll reach the next generation ipso facto, based off of just the fact that, again, everything skews younger. We're all focused. What's trendy? What's not trendy? How is fashion changing? How is lifestyle changing? And again, the younger generation in some cases dictates what the older generation does. And so it's this almost this echo chamber around just, again, skewing younger, focusing younger. I don't think it's quite ageism as much as it's
is it?
maybe it is. As much as I think it's just we invariably as marketers sometimes focus on the wrong thing. We again skew towards what's emerging, less what's our core.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's something like 97% of people age 65 plus say that they don't feel seen and heard within marketing, within brands, which tells you a lot there. So why are they following the younger generation? Because no one's giving them another option, right? But I think when brands actually make the effort to speak to that demographic and those people feel seen and heard and they're told, you do have opportunity in life. You do have purpose. Like, we see that you're just at the start of this new phase of life and we're going to treat you like that. The older adults respond. It's just no one's doing it.
Well, we talk about response. I think in some of your career stops, the challenge has been getting them to respond. It's getting them to book an appointment, come in for a visit, consider senior care. We put it off. We don't want to think about it. And because of that, sometimes it's hard to reach the audience. Forget just, in a lot of cases, how much there's a big percentage of your audience that's not in market. How about when a percentage of your audience that's in market doesn't want to admit they're in market?
Just listen to like the kind of words you're using when you talk about that. Like, you need to do this. Like, there's this sense of what we're talking about of like, well, you need to be doing more appointments. You should be doing this. There's a lot of that and nobody responds well to that. So again, if you speak, I think if the older adults feel seen, if you're reflecting who they are, if you're saying like, we understand, like, you've got like years left to you. And if you don't get that knee replacement, you're not going to get to do all those amazing things you want to do. Like, that's a very different message than, sorry, but your knees aren't working right. And I see you limping and you look kind of pathetic and you're going to need a walker pretty soon. So like, you should get in and do something. Two totally different messages. And if we start noticing the words we use and how we talk about it, it's very different. So I think that if you want anyone, not just older adults, anyone to do something that doesn't sound very appealing, well, you gotta use the right language, right? You gotta make it something that sounds like something that they want to buy into, something that they want to do. And it means speaking to how they see themselves, what their purpose is, what their value is, and helping to create that if it's not already there.
Yeah, I think purpose. We've talked about as a huge motivator here. I use the kind of an analogy or example. I think in some cases when people are thinking about this category, it's like, oh, how do you market to someone that sort of already has everything when it comes to, they're sitting on, or they have a house that's paid off, they have a garage full of goods, but the purpose, the goals, the next steps, you talk about like thinking about the knee replacement as less of the thing that you need, the knees, and more about what it enables, what it empowers, and what it allows for.
Yeah. I think it's interesting when you look at people at different stages in life, right? So when you're little, we think like when you're a baby, you're going to need support, you're going to need help to get to that next stage. And then when you're in grade school, your teachers are helping you get to that next stage. And then when you start your career, you have mentors to help you get to the next stage. And then when you're having kids, you have communities that are helping you figure out how to raise your kids. And when your kids grow, you're figuring out how to get them to college. And you're like, there's this next stage. And then there comes this point where people are like, oh, you're done. Right. And so that's the problem, is that this generation lands there and they're like, but wait, I'm not done. Like, why are you telling me I'm done? I'm not done. And so if you can start to realize as someone in brand and marketing that this generation is not done. They don't see themselves as done just because you don't have the imagination to imagine what they can be in this beautiful space that's opened up where they don't have to schedule everything around their kids, where they have money that's to spend on them and not other people, where they have opportunities. And so I think the idea here is that rather than thinking about like the stuff that they could possibly buy, just think about who they are and how you can support them in creating that next stage of life, whatever it might be.
I think it's funny. We as humans spend so much time moving from one goal to another, one after the other. Oh, life will be better once I get to this milestone or once I get around this corner. And you're right. There's no shortage of things to grab onto and get excited about, motivated about. And then you get to a certain spot. A lot of folks, it's like they are really excited about what retirement is, what it might bring. Then they get closer to retirement, and then sometimes it's okay. Well, what's around that corner? And even business folks that get very high into their career, and then it's like, what's on the other side of that? They've commanded corporations, or they've run all sorts of things, and then you get retired. It's like, oh, more time for golf, more time for this, more time for that. So I think, yes, the audience is yearning for more things, and people are living longer, more fulfilling lives. Before we started recording, you were talking about the concept of some of our entitlement programs, Social Security, and like what that meant then when the average age was 65, that people maybe ended up making that transition we don't all look forward to, right? Kicking the bucket, whatever language that you want to use.
Yeah, when Social Security was created, and whatever the age was, whether it was 62 or 65 that you would get Social Security, that was the average age of death. And that's why it was created. It was like, if you can live beyond that, we're going to support you. And of course, now 65 is like the start of that next stage of life, when you are retired and you get to do whatever it is, have that new sense of purpose that we haven't yet defined. And maybe that's why, because it's newer, because it wasn't that long ago that 65 literally was kind of the end. And now it's very much not. I mean, obviously any age can be, but for so many people, it's the start of, decades more of life, of a new kind of freedom, a new way of life. And the older adults who are living it are either feeling that purpose or looking for that purpose, and they want brands that are going to see that and help them to attain that purpose.
Now, I guess coming back to what we were talking about a little bit earlier, why do you think brands end up falling for just focusing on that younger demographic? Why is it so many brands are just so laser focused? What's Gen Z thinking about right now? What's Gen Alpha in a not so distant future going to be thinking about, right? Why do you think we fall into that paradigm? What are some of the things that, coming from the lens of your career and where you've been, that you hear people sort of falling into that mistake?
Yeah, I think that it's just so deep in our mindset at this point. Like, we are such an ageist culture, honestly. And when you start to dig into it, you see it everywhere. And so I think even the people who in their heads think, oh, I want to help older adults, their vision of what older adults is not what older adults see themselves as. And I'm just going to give an example of stock photography. If you ever go into any kind of stock photography and try and find good photos of older adults living a good life, it's really hard to find. If you want to find a lot of feeble older people leaning on a cane trying to make their way through life, you're going to find a lot of them. And so I think that it's just so embedded in every aspect of our culture and our mindset that it's become a truth. And it's not a truth, but we think it's a truth. And so when you start talking about, oh, but I don't see older adults that way. I work at the National Senior Games, and I started there as a sponsor, and now I actually work within the organization. And you go there, and it's people from age 50 to 100 plus who are pole vaulting. They're doing road races. They're diving off the blocks into the water. Like, these people are amazing. And if you start to see that that's what aging can be, you'd go home and you tell other people about it, and they're like, oh, that's aspirational. It's like, no, it's real. Like, I went there, I saw it, I was part of it. This is my organization. This is real life. Yeah. And it's just, people can't even believe it. It's kind of interesting.
The National Senior Games Association, I think probably plenty of folks listening may not necessarily know about this great organization. And I think part of that awareness is probably what really excites you about what's ahead. Yeah. Not knowing the organization well before talking to you about it, it sounds like the first question is like, oh, what makes me qualify to be a part of that? And so I would love to just have you share a little bit more about the organization and like what the local versus national qualifications are for seniors that, could participate.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you asked that question about what makes you qualify. What makes you qualify is that you decide you're going to do it, and then you do whatever training is necessary. And what I love about the National Senior Games, it is is a mix. So there's some of the sports are actually very easy entry. So
like
power
power
walking,
walk,
exactly,
right?
power walking, billiards, things like that. So you don't need a whole lot of physical strength. You need a certain amount, but you do need to train. Like you need to take it seriously. And there's also ones that, swimming or cycling, pole vaulting or whatever that some people have been doing, since they were in college or whatever it might be. But other people pick up for the first time. They're like, you know what? I kind of know how to swim. I want to become a better swimmer, and you get a coach and you do it. Anyway, across the country, all the states they have their own senior games. And so there's 100,000 athletes who participate in these various state senior games. And then they can qualify through those state senior games for the national games. And around 12 to 13,000 older adults actually go to the national games and compete. And it's kind of amazing. And I think my point is the reason people don't believe it is they don't see the images. And that goes back to that stock photography notion, is if you look at the images out there of older adults, it's not of people pole vaulting or power walking or whatever it might be. They're not in community. They're kind of stuck in this space. And so we start to see older adults as that's what it is to be older. And I don't know which one feeds the other, but it's a chicken and egg kind of a thing. But I think if we can get more of the images that you see at the senior games out there, it might start to flip the way people think about aging. And then they think, I need to get my knee replacement because I want to make sure I'm still power walking when I'm 85.
Yeah.
And that's a different kind of view.
I mean, stock photography, if anything, is another mirror on what society thinks about something. Because people are commissioned to take pictures, they're taking pictures to resell pictures, but they're setting up the scene based off of what they think
people are going to buy.
And what they think a statement is of what something looks like. So whether it's senior population, it's people in addiction and recovery, it's people in IDD, adults with disabilities, whatever category we want to think about, you see probably some things that are okay representation a small percentage of the time, and then a lot of other ones where as marketers, maybe less savvy marketers might think, oh, this is perfect, this is it, I'll throw this photo in a presentation or on a website or something else. But you really understanding the space, there's very specific ones. I'm sure you're like, this is a no-fly zone. We can't use this. We can't associate this with our space. As you think about aging as a category, what are the no-fly zone words, messages, visuals? What are the things you just auto-delete that, maybe I think is a statement about what society might be getting wrong? Yeah.
Well, starting actually with the photography, it's interesting because when I got into senior living, the first thing I did was do a photo shoot. Because what happens is that we start thinking of older adults as other, as this like different category rather than thinking about them as like just like anyone else. Like when you go to a senior living community, you're not going to be like slouched in a chair. You're going to be sitting on the deck having lemonade with your friend or a cocktail, whatever it might be. Like, right? Like just whatever you might do as a 40-year-old could happen as an 80-year-old. And so creating images that look like that, except with 80-year-olds. And so how do you make sure that happens? And when you think about words, we've always had in my organizations had very definite no words, we call them. But one of them is elderly. And I find that one a fascinating one because it comes from the word elder, which means a respected older person. It's it's a word of respect, and yet elderly, whenever anyone hears it, they think I'm obsolete. Right. It suggests obsolescence. And we actually did a poll of hundreds of older adults to just ask them, like, what words do you want to use to describe you? And elderly, they were absolutely 100% against for that reason, because it suggests an end of the road. So we don't use that word. And they chose older adult as their favorite one, or aging adult, which is why I keep using those words. And it's the idea that they're an adult, just like any other adult, but they're older, they're aging, fine, but I'm still just an adult. So that when I was in senior living, the word facility, because do you want to be locked up in a facility when you get older? No. Do you want to be in a community of people who are at the same stage of life as you are? Yeah. So we use the word community, not the word facility. So there's words like that.
I mean, this is an important issue to tackle now as you see a lot of other stigmas getting tackled in society, and people are living longer. And so in Silicon Valley and in some discussions, folks are talking about when we get to this, pace where we're increasing the average age of living faster than people are hitting it. I think there's all sorts of conversations about longevity, hacking the body, all sorts of different ways associated with that. And I think that puts more pressure on conversations like this and more opportunity for brands if they can kind of dial it in and get it right. I guess, what do you feel like is the bigger business opportunity here?
Well, that's an interesting thing about longevity and health span, because people may be living older, but are they living better? And that's kind of the big question. And I think part of the reason that people get scared of getting older is there are older adults who spend many of their later years not thriving. So that's a reality. And I do think that it does partially come about because of this whole notion of aging, that once you slow down, you get scared to go out and do things because people are going to notice you're slower, or you need a walker, or you need a cane. And so you stay inside and you don't move as much. And then you do become frail and you do become older, and then you don't have community, and then you're lonely, and then you don't have as much conversation, and like everything goes downhill, versus saying, you're still part of the community. You just need a little support and like get, whatever it is that you need so you can go out and about and still keep doing your thing. So that's part one. What was the rest of the question? I'm sorry, I got excited about that.
No, the broader, just the business opportunity. I mean, we know we're having this conversation because it's huge and growing as more and more folks age into this category.
Right. So that is the business opportunity, is that if instead of, if you do create a platform, which will take work because the platform right now is to be scared of aging, if you can change that and tell people like aging is a thing to look forward to, like there's all this opportunity there, then people won't be scared of aging. They'll start doing more. And then once they're doing more, they're spending more. There's more of a consumer audience there, which I think is what the brands want. And so if you can create that platform, there is an audience waiting for it. And when they respond and actually go out and do things because you've told them that's good, and you're, at your age, you shouldn't be sitting at home alone. You should be out and about doing your thing. Then they have the money. So it will follow.
And I think the follow-up to that point is, how do we do it without being patronizing? Because so much of the market message in some cases ends up being that.
Yeah. Well, I think it comes back to because people are ageist and they're just saying what's on their mind. If you start treating older adults like adults, and not being patronizing about it. So, I mean, just as an example, so I have a friend who just, she had a baby, and I swim and she swims, but it's harder to get to the pool now because she has kids. And so every time she gets to the pool, it's like a big win, and I'm excited for her. I also have a friend who is 80, and it's just a little harder, like in the winter, to get out and whatever. And when she gets to the pool, I'm excited for her, but I'm excited for her in the same way that I am for my friend in her 30s who also has a hard time, right? So I recognize it's not like, ooh, wow, you're 80. Oh, that's tough. It's just like, hey, we made it. This is exciting. I get to see you. And so if you think about it, that where it's difficult for an older adult to be able to do something, it's not because they're pathetic and you should be like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, oh, that's really tough. It's just like, what would you say to your friend who's having a hard time because she's tired all the time because her kids keep her up all night? Like, just think of it that way, that you don't feel like, oh, you're pathetic, like, wow, your life is over. You just think like, I can't wait till you can get a good night of sleep, or I can't wait till you're able to do that. Like, how do you have that conversation in a way that's supportive rather than thinking, wow, you're kind of pathetic and that's really sad, but like, good for you, you're trying. That's great. Like, there's a different attitude.
Yeah, and I think in some ways we're more accepting of one versus the other.
And why? Why? Let's ask ourselves why.
True. Well, that brings me to my next question. Do you think society's ready to rethink what older means? Are we ready to drop some of the labels that maybe are offensive to that category? Are we ready to lean more elder than elderly?
Yeah, I love that. That's great. Some people are, and I think we got to get to a tipping point where there's enough people. I think they say it's like the rule of thirds. If you can get a third of the people thinking that way, then other people will start to come along.
Yeah.
I think there are voices out there. Certainly the National Senior Games is one. There's others. And I hope to see a lot more. And I encourage brands, like, seriously, there's an audience there. Tap into it in a way that's meaningful. And there's so much there for you and for that audience.
I think it's up to pop culture as well. I don't know if you saw the new Netflix show that some are calling kind of the Stranger Things applied to seniors. I think it's called The Burrows. But again, it centers on like your characters that you're rooting for are these elders that are sort of fighting what's going on. I don't think it's the sci-fi show is going to move the needle with regards to this conversation. But if we see more shows where the hero in the story is, elders and seniors, it also challenges what our preconceived notions are with regards to what our capabilities are.
Yeah. And there'll be more and more and more, and it'll catch on, and we'll get there.
So from a mindset shift perspective, for CMOs listening, growth leaders listening, what mindset shift would you want to set for them? What way would you want to frame this conversation as they're sort of thinking about this and maybe taking away some of the concepts that you've seen brands show success with?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say, first of all, just look inside your own head and how do you feel about aging? And like, just really notice that, because what you feel as an individual is going to come through and whatever you put forward for your brand. And so just be aware of that. And if you're scared of aging, ask yourself why, and ask yourself what it could be, and then start to build from there, because that's where it starts. The reason we are where we are is that it's so deep in our mindset, we think it's a truth, and it's not a truth. It's something we've convinced ourselves of.
So you're saying start with the mirror work.
Yes, exactly.
Go deep.
Exactly.
Think about your own preconceived notions and how that relates to the photography that we pick or the message that we put out there or what that means.
Yeah.
And I mean, walk a mile in the audience's shoes. I don't know if you have the opportunity, but like we all have folks of different ages on our team. Sometimes it's if it's a younger marketer, breaking bread with people in the audience and maybe challenging what those sort of preconceived notions are. Yeah,
and all types of the audience, because there are people who do fit our stereotype of what it is to be older. So I'm not trying to pretend that doesn't exist. I'm trying to say that's not the whole of it. That's one segment of it. So make sure you're seeing all of the audience and not just one small part of it.
Awesome. Well, we're coming to the end of our show. I guess my last question for you is, what's a buzzword or a statement or something you really want to see retired? I think for a lot of folks I bring on the show, it's marketing specific, but I guess in this category, it might be worth even just unpacking some of the word choice with regards to what you hold near and dear.
Oh, that's a tough one. I want people to think differently about what it means to be older. Like that word elderly, just get rid of it unless you start thinking of it as eldered, the positive part of it becoming elderly, being the derivative of that. I don't know.
That's okay. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it comes back to just challenging your misconceptions, challenging the way that you think about this category, and acknowledging the fact that folks are living longer and many more fulfilling lives, and so we can't default back to the person with a limp or the cane or the mobility challenges or things associated, because guess what? There's seniors that are 90 plus that are contributing, that are competing in games and fighting, or still horseback riding, or still downhill skiing, or doing fun, adventurous sports. And we would all yearn to do that, right?
Or they might have a walker, but they're still doing great things in life. Maybe they're not in the games. That's not the only avenue. But like, they could be doing amazing things. Like, why does a walker stop your life? There's still so much opportunity there. And so, stop feeling sorry for older adults.
I like
Celebrate them.
I like that. And I think goals in life are so important, and I love the message. I love the positive perspective, and I think for anybody listening, it's about really kind of rethinking what we hold in our heads when we think about this category. Well, Linda, thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been great talking to you today, and thanks so much.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
That's it for No Assigned Seats. Meeting adjourned.
This episode was brought to you by our sponsor, Stirling Brandworks, an agency that I think is fantastic. But I'm biased because I work there, so do your own research and visit stirlingbrandworks.com.